Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to discuss one of the most shocking developments in recent history, the story that many are calling Putin being stabbed in the back by his own soldiers. On the battlefield, where loyalty, discipline, and command are supposed to define the Russian forces, what we are now witnessing looks more like collapse and confusion. Russian soldiers who were once presented to the world as one of the strongest and most feared armies are now showing signs of rebellion, disunity, and mental breakdown. This review-style breakdown will look at the situation from every angle, describing the exterior appearance of the Russian military, the interior mood within the ranks, their battlefield performance, the so-called safety measures, what unique characteristics stand out about this crisis, the price Russia is paying, and how all of this leads us to an unavoidable conclusion. When we first look at the exterior of the Russian military, the image that used to exist has almost vanished. For years, Russia showcased its army as modern, disciplined, and capable of launching operations anywhere. Tanks rolled in parades, soldiers marched in perfect formation, and propaganda painted them as an unstoppable force. But on the current battlefield, the exterior no longer matches that picture. Instead of coordination, we see chaos. Instead of pride, there are expressions of fear and exhaustion. The Russian army appears battered, with broken machinery, outdated equipment, and soldiers who no longer hide their frustration. The whole exterior view of the Russian war machine is now one of weakness, an appearance of power that is falling apart before global eyes. The crumbling facade tells us that what lies within is far worse than anyone had expected. Inside the ranks, the situation is even darker. The morale of Russian soldiers has plummeted to shocking levels. Soldiers speak of not knowing why they are fighting, of feeling abandoned by their leadership, and of losing any sense of purpose. The interior of this machine is no longer powered by discipline and unity, but by fear, doubt, and resentment. Stories emerge of soldiers refusing orders, sabotaging equipment, or simply walking away from the front lines. Some accounts suggest entire groups turning against their commanders, an act that would have been unthinkable not long ago. This interior collapse is short and sharp, but it explains everything we see on the outside. An army without belief in its mission becomes nothing more than a group of armed men without direction. Performance on the battlefield has exposed these weaknesses to the world. Once thought to be a rapid and unstoppable force, the Russian army now struggles to achieve even modest goals. Offensives stall, supply lines collapse, and technology fails to match the promises made by Russian leaders. In many places, poorly trained conscripts are thrown into fights they cannot win, with little preparation and even less equipment. What should have been demonstrations of strength instead become examples of failure. The performance metrics are devastating: lost ground, wasted resources, heavy casualties, and low morale. These numbers and outcomes prove that Russia's military performance is not just disappointing but dangerously ineffective. What was once described as a professional fighting force now looks like a fragmented collection of unprepared and unwilling fighters. In terms of safety features, the Russian military has left its own soldiers dangerously exposed. There is no real protection for those on the front lines. They face enemy attacks, but also threats from their own side. Commanders enforce discipline with brutal punishments, making soldiers feel as though they are trapped between two fires. Some units lack proper medical care, and others are sent into battle without sufficient armor or support. Families back home are left in fear, uncertain if they will ever see their loved ones again. The supposed safety net that military discipline is meant to provide has collapsed, leaving soldiers in constant danger. This environment of fear and insecurity only deepens the distrust within the ranks, pushing more soldiers to question why they are still fighting. What makes this situation uniquely shocking is the betrayal at its core. The most unusual and defining element here is not just the loss of battles but the soldiers themselves beginning to resist or rebel against their own system. Armies throughout history have faced defeats, but it is rare to see such visible signs of collapse from within. The unique selling point, if we use that phrase in this grim context, is the betrayal narrative. The story is not simply of an army losing to an enemy, but of soldiers losing faith in their commander-in-chief. Putin, who once demanded loyalty and presented himself as the unchallenged leader of a proud military, now finds himself doubted by the very people meant to protect his power. That image of betrayal, soldiers stabbing their leader in the back figuratively if not literally, is what has made this story so powerful around the world. The price of this breakdown is beyond calculation. Russia pays in terms of lives lost, both of soldiers on the battlefield and of civilians caught in the chaos. Economically, the war drains resources that could have supported society, while sanctions and international pressure cut deeper every day. Politically, Russia's image is tarnished, with even allies questioning its reliability. But the heaviest cost may be personal for Putin himself. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. The soldiers no longer trust their commanders, the public no longer fully trusts the government's narrative, and the international community no longer fears the Russian military as it once did. The price of betrayal is humiliation, and that humiliation is paid daily in front of the entire world. Looking at all of these factors together, the conclusion becomes clear. What we are witnessing is not just a military struggling with an opponent, but a system collapsing under its own weight. The exterior image of order and strength is shattered, the interior morale has evaporated, the performance is weak and ineffective, safety is non-existent, the unique story is betrayal, and the price is devastating on every level. Putin, who once stood confidently on the foundation of military power, is now standing on quicksand. The very soldiers who were meant to secure his authority are now the ones who threaten it most. The lesson from this collapse is one that history repeats again and again. No leader, no matter how powerful, can maintain control if the people who are supposed to serve him stop believing in his cause. An army may have tanks, planes, and weapons, but without morale, discipline, and purpose, it becomes an empty shell. Today, Russia's military is showing us that collapse from within is more dangerous than any external enemy. The battlefield has become a stage for betrayal, and the consequences of this betrayal will echo far beyond the war itself. For Putin, this is not just a setback, but possibly the beginning of the end of his military myth. This script is around 1,200 words and written in continuous flowing paragraphs with no headings, no narrator/host cues, exactly as you requested.